Welcome to Hallway Conversations with Matt and Dave. We've both been teaching for quite a while now, but we still have plenty of questions about education. And this podcast is our place for thinking out loud together about topics that we think are important for Christian educators to consider. Welcome to the conversation. Thanks for joining us for Hallway Conversations. I'm Dave Mulder.
And I'm Matt Beamers. We want to thank you for allowing us to be here with you today, folks. If you are stopping by for the first time or you are a return visitor, we are very grateful for your time. We know it's precious, so thanks for joining us today. Just to give you a bit of a context for Hallway Conversations, this all started about 6 or 7 months ago when I recently moved to the Midwest. I didn't know Dave at all. I'd heard his name, heard lots of things about just the amazing practitioner and wonderful human being that
You're way
he
too
is.
kind. Way too kind.
Yes, I am, but that we digress. And yeah, we slowly started getting to know each other. And it started out actually very simply as, hey, do you know where the photocopier is? Where's the key for this cupboard? Do we have to bring our own coffee?
Right.
Just things like that. And even though that's where it started, often it would turn into a 15 or 20 minute conversation. Like I've never been in a situation where I've asked someone if I could borrow a dry erase marker, and we ended up talking about formative and summative assessment practices 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
And so it kind of grew from there, to be honest. And we often found ourselves, due to the nature of COVID and what's going on, being in the hallway, kind of distanced from each other. And after a few months, we permitted ourselves to sit in each other's office and talk. And as we were sitting here, we just came up with this idea of, hey, what if we tried a podcast? And so these are hallway conversations that we typically have here that we want to share with you. So thanks for joining us today. The format of this is the scarier part of this whole thing, is that we take turns bringing topics without telling the other person what we're going to talk about. And it's often comes in the form of a question. So Dave has no idea what I'm about to ask him. And so here's my question, Dave, and let me just do a short preamble. In getting to know you, you are, and I say this with deep encouragement, that you are committed to your trade. You are a master craftsman when it comes to teaching. You spend time thinking about it. You spend time preparing. It's been pretty inspiring to watch. But my question for you is, what motivates you? Like that. I partly ask this because I want to pump a little bit of whatever motivates you into my veins. Yeah. But can you just talk about that a little bit? The topic of motivation, and the question is, what motivates Dave Mulder?
Sure. So I guess the jokey, cynical answer is probably the 7 cups of coffee I have every day, right? There's a reason my eyes are bugging out of my head.
Folks, you can't see Dave, but this is one of the truest statements that's been said all day.
Yeah. Okay. So a more authentic, more purpose-driven answer, maybe. Let's go that way. I've said to you many times, Matt, we get to do this. We get to do this, and our work at this point in our careers is we're coming alongside future teachers and practicing teachers and helping them shape themselves as practitioners. How are they going to be? And I take that as a high calling. That's not something to take lightly. It's slightly terrifying when you think about the long-term implications of what that looks like. But there is definitely a motivation in that work, right? So when I think about motivation, oftentimes I come back to, and I think you've read Dan Pink's book Drive, and
highly recommend.
Yeah, for our listeners, if you haven't read it, it's worth it. The whole book is really around the science of motivation, and Pink unpacks a lot of different researchers' work on what motivates people. And he basically comes back to, there's 3 things. If you really want to motivate people to be intrinsically motivated, there's all kinds of external motivators that you can nudge people with carrots and sticks. But if you really want them to be intrinsically motivated to do the work, there's 3 things, he says: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So let me unpack each of those a little bit. Autonomy is this idea that I have power in the work that I'm doing. I have a voice in the work that I'm doing. I have some opportunity to determine when and where and with whom I'm going to do the work. Now, we can't do that completely, I mean, in the nature of the work that we do too. But yeah, as much as is possible for us to have a sense of autonomy in what we're doing. Mastery is this idea that I should be able to work on things that matter and that I have the opportunity to work on them till I can get better at them, right? Most of the time, the first time anybody tries something, we don't do it successfully the first time. Once in a while, there's beginner's luck, but a lot of times you got to practice stuff. And I think teaching is definitely the sort of thing that you get better the more you do it. We got to keep practicing. And so I think there's definitely an opportunity for us to work towards mastery. But the problem is thinking maybe like a mathematician about this, like the concept of a limit. I can get closer to mastery, but I can never actually achieve it. But that learning curve starts to flatten out after a while. And you do keep getting better, but it's more incremental over time. And then the third one, I guess this is the one that's most aligned for what I was talking about for why or what motivates me, is this idea of purpose. And purpose, working for something bigger than yourself, working for something more important than just my paycheck, working for something that has, dare I say it, eternal consequences. Boy, that gets you out of bed in the morning, right? And I think that's when I jokingly say we get to do this. That's no joke. We get to do this, and I feel a real sense of purpose, and that motivates a lot of what I'm trying to do as an educator.
Yeah. So if you think about being motivated, so just a little. I'm gonna expose us for a second here, Dave. We are Enneagram 3s. We are both Enneagram 3s. The performer, the achiever. Mm-hmm. How do you make sure you're being motivated by the right purpose? How do you make sure you're not just feeding your own soul? How do you make sure that mastery isn't because you just want to be the best teacher so that people know you as the best teacher? Like, how do you keep the main thing the main thing?
Yeah. Matt, you ask the hard questions here. And you're right. Like, this is something that I have to grapple with because part of, being the achiever is I want people to see me look at all the good stuff I'm doing, right? And there's a dark side of that, right? At the healthiest, I'm doing all these great things to really serve other people and to elevate them and to bring them along, right? But the dark side is, and I have to check this for myself, that there are times where I'm doing things just because I want to be seen as, wow, look at that rock star. He's so great, right? Rock star, it's funny. Okay, so one of my favorite bands is, no one's ever heard of them. Mute Math is the name of the band.
Literally, no one's heard of them.
Right, okay, but they're great. They're fantastic.
I trust you.
They have this song, and I think it's the Enneagram 3 theme song. The song is called Blood Pressure. And it's kind of about this inner tension that you feel. And the lyrics of the song, why can't you be more like your older brother? Why can't you be a little more like Jesus? And that sense, like, look at all the good stuff I'm doing. I'm a Christian educator. Yeah. Don't you see how I'm pouring my blood, sweat, and tears out in the work that I'm doing here? Like, you should think highly of me because I'm doing this for Jesus. And then that reality check of, well, I mean, I say sometimes I'm doing this for Jesus, but really when push comes to shove, I wonder, am I doing this because I want people to think highly of me? Yeah. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
No, but it also makes me realize, like, like, why can't you be more like your older brother? Like, why can't you be more like Dave Mulder? Why can't you be more like whoever? Fill in the blank, right? Yeah. And the danger of comparison and the demon of discouragement that comes with comparison, like this idea also of accepting who you are as a teacher, right? Like I don't need to be the best version of Dave Mulder. I need to be the best version of Matt Beamers.
Right. And to be okay with that, like that's maybe a weird take on this whole idea of motivation too, but to really ask that question, what drives this purpose for you and what's motivating you
and that's not to suggest I can't learn from you.
No, that's right.
But we don't need more Dave Mulders or Matt Beamers walking around this campus.
Heavens no.
Well,
and I think that your point is well taken, Matt, right? Like we can't be. I early in my teaching career, I had a phenomenal high school math teacher, Mark Hugan. Phenomenal math teacher. And I was a middle school math teacher, and I aspired to be him. And so a lot of the things that I said and that I did in my classroom, and I would try to be more and more like Mark. And he's fantastic, right? But I'm not Mark. I'm Dave.
And people don't want you to be Mark, actually.
Right. And so to give yourself permission to grow into who are you going to be as a teacher?
No, for sure. Dave, you had, when you were talking about the Enneagram 3, you use this phrase, hey, when I'm at my healthiest. The reality is, in many fields, including education, people aren't at their healthiest. It has been the most trying 10, 11, 12 months almost now, the most complex of school years. You and me have the privilege of running into many teachers who are currently in classrooms. And there's a level of exhaustion there. And right now it's still hard, this idea of return to normal, whatever that looks like, but this idea of like, when will we get through this, right? And there's an unknown to that. And that can be incredibly demotivating. And so I'm just wondering, not asking you to bare your soul, but how about for you when it's hard to be motivated? Like, you are you lead with positivity. I remember that you said once.
Yeah, that's right.
And you are, you live your life open-handed. You are hospitable and generous with your time and your energy.
I aspire to that.
Totally. Exactly. You aspire to it. What about on the days that you don't have much to give anymore? Like, it is too much. Like, is there a word for our listeners, a word of acknowledgement or encouragement about, it's hard sometimes?
Absolutely. Well, and I'm glad you asked that question, right? And I learned this, I guess, for myself most tangibly when I was in grad school, where, I'm already working 50 plus hours a week on my work as a teacher, and then I've got 20 plus hours a week of grad school homework, and like, that's not sustainable in the long term, right? And so sometimes you're just looking at the big pile of stuff you've got to do, and it's so overwhelming. And I think a lot of teachers feel that pressure right now, especially, right? We're looking at the big pile. And so a strategy that I started to do for myself was, okay, whatever the big thing is, like I'm likely to pick the small thing, right? The thing that's easy, and let's like get those off my desk. And that's not a bad thing, but sometimes you're still looking at the big thing, and you just got to get at it. So my rule was the 10-minute rule for myself. I said I can do anything for 10 minutes, and so I'm just going to attack it. Whatever that hard thing is, 10-minute rule. I can do anything for 10 minutes. And what I found was oftentimes after you get after it for 10 minutes, okay, now that wasn't so bad. At least I got started, right? And so sometimes I would continue on more than just my 10 minutes. And sometimes 10 minutes is all I got, right? Like I can't work at the hard thing for any more than that. So I guess that's part of it. And maybe the flip side of that is also true. If you have been working on something for so long that now it feels like you're banging your head on the wall because it's the big thing, to just be gracious enough with yourself to say, I think I'm done working on this for now, and to take a break. I think that's one of the hard things about teaching. Because
it's always there.
Right. And I think that it's kind of intangible work sometimes, right? Like when my summer jobs, when I was a student, I would always work in construction, right? And there's something so tangible about that kind of work that at the beginning of the day, there wasn't a wall here, and at the end of the day, there is, because I built this thing, right? And in education, we don't always have that. It's slow growing. Right? That we might have students come back 5 or 10 years down the road and say, hey, what you did made a difference. But tomorrow I'm not going to see that necessarily. Yeah,
no, totally. I think part of it too, that it's just can be incredibly hard, is like there's the being in the building, the physical aspect of it, but also just 8 o'clock at night, I'm thinking about this. 9:30, I'm thinking about this. It was interesting to me that I kind of discovered that over the summer, my favorite, for lack of a better word, evening was Sunday night. Because during the school year, I'd always find like at about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock Sunday night, my brain would just start going and going and going.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this idea of like, I need to rest. And so on Sunday nights, it'd be like, oh, like my brain's not going. Like I'm taking care of myself. And so it just reminds me of like that idea to walk away sometimes, like 10 minutes, I'm going to try, and I just don't have it today. And that's okay, actually.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
All right, all right. Well, Matt, I got to take the opportunity here then to turn the question around on you. And if you'd share a little bit with me, what motivates you? We say we get to do this, but what does that look like for you?
Yeah, we get to do this. We definitely get to do this. What an honor and a privilege. As you were talking, Dave, if I'm honest, I was being in a fully present as I could, but I was thinking about that for myself and kind of what motivates me. And the first thing that came to mind, and maybe this is easy to say, but I take it to heart, is my family. You know, if I think about Bev and my 4 daughters, and wanting to be a person that they can look at, sort of aspire to be more like. I want to be a mentor and a role model for them. So that motivates me to do good work. Like, I want them to see me doing good, purposeful, and meaningful work, and to find joy in my work. So my family for sure is part of that. But as you were talking, I was also maybe in a different direction, thinking about something a little different. The last 15, 16 years, I've had the honor, and it was a privilege, to teach at a school in Vancouver, British Columbia, a Christian school there. I was a teacher there, a vice principal, and a principal. And it was the most amazing community, actually. The most professional staff, loving staff. The students were incredible. Like, smiling right now as I think about them, and the families were so supportive. And I miss them, actually, as I talk about them. I miss being with them. And but as I think about that place, one of the gifts that that place gave me came through the form of their superintendent, Dave, a good friend now of mine. One of the things that I learned from Dave, as we were a growing school and we were going through a merge, and we were changing and reestablishing our mission and vision, one of the things I learned from him was the importance of the mission and vision being alive in the life of the school. Right? We've all been in schools where it's maybe it's hanging on the wall, maybe it's not even hanging on the wall. Nobody knows the mission or vision statement, and it certainly doesn't influence practices or policies in the school. And what I loved about, one of the many things I loved about Dave, was his deep desire to filter all decisions through the mission and the vision.
Oh, yeah.
And so, one big decision we had to make as a school when we were there was we had a discussion about going one-to-one computer laptops, grades 7 to 12. And there was so many factors in that decision, whether it was finances, whether it was about student learning, would it improve student learning, how does it fit into our community, how will it impact pedagogy, and those are all important discussions, and those are all discussions that we had. But the discussion for Dave always seemed to start in one place, and that was, whatever we decide, does it move us closer to our fulfilling our mission statement, or does it move us further away? Mm-hmm. And Dave sometimes used the language of the mission statement being our promise statement, which is a bit unsettling, to be honest.
For sure.
Like, that word promise is a big word. And I think what I realized is I don't know if any school ever completely fulfills their mission and vision, but it was this idea that we are going to do whatever we can with the resources we have. We're going to promise to pursue and fulfill that mission statement as fully as we can. And so when we made decisions about budget or one-to-one laptops or buying a new school bus, whatever those decisions were, the starting place was always, does it get us closer fulfilling the promise we made to our parents when they committed to partner with us as a school? Yeah. And I found that really motivating, like this idea of wanting to participate in the mission and vision of the school. Like, that really, that motivated me. That really was a drive for me to be like, man, like, like, we get to do this. It's like, we get to fulfill this mission and vision statement. And I feel that a bit at working at Dordt as well, as I get to know this place. If anybody's ever been to this university, and I realize we're in Northwest Iowa, so far many people have never been here and may never get here, but at the entrance to our campus, there's a big clock tower, and on that clock tower is the mission statement, and it's something else called the Founder's Vision, which is a really bold vision for me. If I think that founder's vision is 60 years old or
right,
so.
right.
It was a bold mission, bold vision that they had. And so even when I look at that, I think, man, we get to stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us, and the Lord willing, people will stand on our shoulders after they leave. But as I think about all that, Dave, I actually come back to that phrase, we get to do this. And as I was thinking about, that as you were talking, I was thinking about a theology professor I had in university, Mike Goheen, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for the person that he is and the writing and thinking that he does. But Mike might not even know this, but he used a line many years ago that I use in my writing and my speaking and my teaching. He often talks about the Bible sort of as God's unfolding story of redemption.
Oh, yes.
And I love that line. And so when I think about the line, we get to do this, what is the this? Mm-hmm. For me, the motivation of we get to do this, the this is we get to participate in God's unfolding story of redemption as, as friends, as colleagues. We get to do that in the classroom. We get to do that with our families. We get to do that in all of our life, actually. And for me, that in the end, that's actually what motivates me, is that that we get to participate in the renewal and the transformation of all things, that we're good enough to be co-creators and co-workers with God in all of this. And I'm motivated to help our students see that they don't have to wait till they leave university, or that they can start in the participating in God's unfolding story when they're 5 and 10 and 15, and my mom and dad who are in their 80s continue to participate in that. And so in the end, I would say that's what motivates me. So when we say we get to do this from now on, Dave, I'm going to think of, we get to participate in God's unfolding story of redemption.
That's so amazing. And as you say that, I'm thinking too, like as if God needs us for any of this.
Totally.
Like, he lets us jump in.
He lets us do this.
Wow.
He invites us in and says, you get to be part of this story. Like, who says no? Who says no to that? Okay, people do. That motivates me, like to say I'm all in. I'm jumping in. I'm saying yes to that invitation. And whether that's for me as a teacher, or if I think about my brothers as construction workers, or my sister who was a pastor, like all of those things, we're invited every day wherever we're called to serve, to participate in that story. And that's incredible to me.
This is a highly motivating conversation for me, my friend. So thank you for bringing the question.
Thanks, Dave. And thanks for answering and your thoughts, and for helping me learn from you. It's a pleasure and a joy. And I just want to thank anybody who's listening for joining us in this hallway conversation, and for allowing us to be here with you.
Thanks for being here, people.
Thank you.
This podcast was quite literally dreamed up by Matt and Dave during one of their hallway conversations. Our music was created by Ethan Mulder. Hallway Conversations is an independent podcast created and produced by Dave Mulder and Matt Beamers. Thanks for listening.